All right, a very good morning to you. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to the program this morning. This is Friday morning. It's the 13th of May, 2022. They used to call this Black Friday, but probably we've had a black week in Trinidad and Tobago if we follow that kind of thinking. We'll tell you why as we go along the program this morning. We're just telling you what's coming down the pike in the second hour. We'll be talking with, yesterday we spoke with a journalist on the ground in St. Kitts Nevis, Andre Huey, about the collapse one more time of a government in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. This morning we're talking with one of those people who was involved in that, or who was we would say a victim of that. He's the Premier of Nevis, but he was also the Minister of Foreign Affairs in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Mark Brantley is his name. We're speaking with him this morning about what transpired and how they can get themselves settled in that island member state in CARICOM. And also, a little later on, we're talking with the Mayor of Point Fortin, Salima Thomas. She'll show up this morning. How they're continuing to grieve in the southern borough, well, the southernmost borough in the country, in Point Fortin, over the death of the little boy who walked away from his home and ended up in a river in the area, and the grief and the anger that has spawned among people in that community. But right now, let me just read for you a little bit of a transcription or transmission I got in my box last evening. A national consultation on violence and murder in Trinidad and Tobago. You are correct that the majority of murders are by men of men. In fact, it is young black men killing other young black men that has assumed the center stage. The self-destruction of young black men by other black men is equally horrendous. But we are all silent on this. The problem should be addressed by our elders, particularly within the black community, and by our religious leaders. It has long assumed national proportions, yet our politicians, and especially the government of the day, is relatively silent, reflecting their helplessness and the low priority which they associate with our pain. This is now the #1 national problem. There are those who will have us turn to religious solution for prayers. I will not seek to argue against this. However, others would recommend that this problem is soluble. The government must focus on this problem with some urgency. Other societies that have visited this scourge have dealt with it, the extreme violence and murder. It has an organic origin in the nature of the very society, particularly in its economics and its politics. It is not a curse from heaven nor from hell. We cannot deal with violence in a society without dealing with poverty, hopelessness, and extremes of distribution of national wealth. We have attempted to treat with the problem so far with the cosmetic brush of or sporadic police brutality and violence, and each time we have failed, as the problem has spiraled further out of control, assuming frightening proportions. First, we must believe that the solution is within our gift. I humbly recommend that we need an urgent national consultation on violence and murder. Next year, this time, we can only imagine where we will be as a society. And the person signing that is Professor Winston H.E. Sweet. He's with us now this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
We'll take it up from there. So you're calling for an urgent assembly of major people, major institutions and organizations led by the government to address this issue. All week we've had front pages on top of the news items about murders and killings and robberies and the rest of it. This morning.
Well, I would wish to start with an article that appeared in one of the newspapers where the acting commissioner of police gave us some useful data that we have roughly 134 gangs in Trinidad. And this covers over years somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 members. But no one could tell us how many people depend upon these gangs for their economic and other survival. I believe that what we have been looking at is approaching it, the question of extreme violence, murder, etc., with the solution of the police and the prisons. And these efforts have not been successful. And I doubt very much they will be successful in the future. I believe while we collect data, the question is, there's another set of data that we should be collecting. And out of that, we should be releasing a different group of workers, if you want to call them that, in the area to deal with. For instance, have we looked at the correlation between the location, the geography of those gangs and the question of school dropouts? Have we looked at the number of passes at CXC Cape and SEA in those areas? And we have to be careful that we have schools in some of these areas that are well protected with barbed wires and fence, but they do not administer to the population that resides in that area. In fact, their students come from outside to these elite schools, etc. I think that we should look also at employment levels in these areas. And we should look at the question, for instance, offhand I know of one program that was developed by the UTT, the National University, in an attempt to take remedial education, I said, to the youth of these what called hotspots. And the program was developed and it has gone nowhere. A lot of people try to look at the crime, and they say that the majority of the killings take place in the north.
In urban areas, yes.
In urban areas. And they talk about the blame and the criminals and the uneducated dropouts. But the question is, what are we doing about changing this, the history of these communities? In other words, we have thrown at this problem for more than, I would say, 50 years, things like URP, CPEP, special works, etc. And these have failed. We have to use other tools in our toolkit, or get other tools in our toolkit. We have to look at the question of persistent poverty in these areas, endemic poverty. We have to look at the question of employability. I have spoken extensively elsewhere on the question of the relevance of our present education system. I have spent most of my adult life, starting as a young man, about 20 years old, in teaching. And I continue to teach, be in contact with young people and even some older ones. And I believe that our education system is not dealing with the problems. And we right now are playing with cosmetics, spinning around with these education, starting with the 11 plus and whatever you all call it at this time.
All right, the SEA.
We are not, we are not training people for the job market that should be evolving. We are busy training them with a formula that may have applied when I was a young man many years ago. I wouldn't tell you how many.
50 years ago. So. All right, but I mean, let's talk about what you propose as a national consultation. You're saying that is an absolute requirement now. What are you talking about? Is some of the things that you, if you had the opportunity, then if such a forum was put together, these are some of the things you would be saying there. But I want to go back to what you say the Commissioner of Police has said, because it struck me when I read it yesterday. 146 gangs in the country. One thought that the formation of a gang, the belonging to a gang, was a crime. So how could we be acknowledging?
If I could interrupt you, this is not the first time we have been visited with the numbers of gangs.
Right, and the question
is, of gangs.
The
question is what the police is not the instrument to solve that problem. The crime is not solvable using police, either police action, brutality, whatever you call it. that is not going to, it has not solved the problem in any country.
Right. So you mean that I thought
In
one
other
thought
words,
that
we have to ask,
the existence
why are these young men engaging in hopeless activities where the life span is so short? Every day we hear of these young men dying. Young men dying, either they're killing one another or the police killing them, which tells us that that's an environment of hopelessness. And you and I, who may enjoy, for whatever reason, some vision of the future, positive vision for our children, do not understand what it means to be in a community that people call ghettos and hotspots, what it is like to grow up there, and the question of hopelessness, and the symptoms are there. The dropouts from school, the irrelevance of the education, the unemployment levels. These people, young men, they are not foolish. They grow up and they see a society divided by wealth, that certain areas are blessed with the fruits of all the development that took place since 1962 and after 1970.
So, let's talk about what you call for the establishment of this national consultation. Who should pull it together? What are the agencies should be involved?
Well, I believe, first and foremost, if we want to put an organization, a machinery at it, we have to ask ourselves what we want to achieve. So one of the first things we want to know is the data that I am saying, that preliminary data. And the best agency to handle that would be the University of the West Indies and the University of Trinidad and Tobago, the National University. And we have another university of University of the Southern Caribbean.
Yes.
We mobilize those skills and let them be in charge of two things. One, collecting data and analyzing the data and the effectiveness of your programs. But also you need to radically change your education system. So people from the education system, from preschool to university, must be involved, those who are involved in the curriculum design. We have to redesign almost like yesterday. Those who go to the privileged school, they go to school like I went to. In other words, they're happy with the system. They don't want to change. They wanted to stay just as there. The children pass the exams, and the children of the majority of the children of the well-off go get the chance to go to the best schools, and then they go to universities, and then they get best jobs. But what about the children who grow up in these so-called ghetto areas? We have abandoned them as a society. All of us are guilty. And I'm saying the police is not the solution. They may be part of the solution, but they are not the solution. The fundamental thing is, how are we going to deal with the extremes of wealth and its consequences? Unemployment, poverty, hopelessness. How are we going to deal with that? And it appears as if some people are deaf or blind to the problem.
All right. One of the points you make as well is that there's a silence, and some people like to use the term a deafening silence from those in authority.
If this is a real problem, we must talk about it. We must talk about it on the chat sites. We must talk about it on the TV and the radio. We were on all these sites. That is what we should be discussing. Not when somebody kills somebody, you show the picture of the head falling off, and we talk, and every now and again we talk about how many gangs we have and the hot spots and where the gangs are located, and how many killings get placed in this place. And that is what we're doing. We are not engaging on the media, electronic or print or social media, discussing the question of poverty and hopelessness in the society. We discuss symptoms and consequences. Therefore, we are not going to, that's why I ended that short note by saying that next year we will most likely at this time next year be bemoaning our position with the same vehemence and wishing that some solution will fall from the sky, or that we'll go on a retreat and we will say prayers and we'll have a march around the savannah and then we'll go back into our house and know fully well that nothing will change. I believe consultation, national consultation with all the people, including the police, including the social workers, including the people from the legal profession who have to deal with these people, right? In the courthouses and the police station. We need a wide discussion, but this must be led by the leaders in the country, where those who lead the country will get the first-hand information pushed into their face, and they will know that it is not a threat, but that they have to treat with urgency this problem.
Right, so
this is our number one problem in this society.
Right, would you put the responsibility on the National Security Council, when the Prime Minister is the chairman of the National Security Council, and they should call the shots?
This is of national importance. The Prime Minister, I am not his employer. I am not his boss. I am not skilled in all these areas. But I believe so. The leaders, and that applies also to the voice of all the political parties, the opposition party. I want to hear solutions. If you go into office next time, what will you do about crime? I feel that should be the single largest problem next to education that should determine how the population should vote.
But you're saying that there's a direct connection between the type of education that we have and the quality of the education and the results that end up, as you were describing it earlier. So
as somebody who I have spent, I told you earlier on, Mr. Gentleman, I have spent my entire life teaching, from secondary school to university, undergraduate and postgraduate. I have seen the problem. I have seen it from my extra academic involvement. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it now in my old age. It is getting worse. And we are appearing helpless as a society. We are appearing helpless. We are running up and down and chasing the garbage truck like the dogs, when we have more fundamental problems to look at. The dogs run behind the garbage truck when they pass, as if they could do something. They just run and back. This is what we're doing, running and backing. We are not coming up with solutions, and I'm not going to go to sleep. I'm not ready for my final sleep. I believe that we have to address this issue, not only because of the killing of the young black men. That is a pain to me. The killing and the dying of young black men at their own hands and at the hands of the police. The hopelessness. We have to do something to rescue them.
And not to make too fine a point about it. Not to make too fine a point. Not to make too fine a point about it, but this week it seems to have been the question of women continuing to be victims in this case. For thus far this week.
A few years ago, I did a short piece on that when they threw the young lady up Arima side down a cliff.
Yes.
And a couple of months after, they found somebody else down the cliff, and now the police say they're going to put cameras. Put cameras to what? To take photographs after the fact? Well, yes, cameras are useful for a number of things. But we are not asking ourselves why. We have young, and I believe a lot of these crimes and domestic violence is a serious problem. That's another issue we have to see. We men have to look at it, because we are the main ones committing the offense against our women and girls. Domestic violence as a society, we don't seem to understand the solution. As soon as there's a problem, you get your cutlass, sharpen it, or you shoot the person. That's the solution. Yeah. And then you run and hide and you cry, or you give up yourself. We have to save those men who are finding it difficult to deal with domestic problems. Isn't that another serious issue?
Yeah. All right. We got to go, but let me just ask you. Let me just ask you. What has been the response apart from coming on this program or invitation for you to come and talk it out as you've done this morning? What have been may have been some of the reactions to what you posted yesterday? From whom?
Well, I must say that in some areas it is absolute silence, as if people have been struck by a bolt of lightning that has paralyzed them from their head down. No comment. We comment on all kinds of nonsense, or we comment on the head cut off, but we're not commenting on the problem. The children that are left parentless. I saw one case where a woman was killed. She is literally building a house. The men are absent, and that failure to deal with domestic problems. Now the father is locked up, and the mother is dead, and we have three little children, parentless. I don't want to go into the issue about what mechanism we have to deal with, period. Because a few days ago we saw in the papers where some of these homes are themselves the occasion of brutalizing the innocents. They brutalize the innocents, rape, and plundered both their body and their minds in some of these homes. Yeah. Some of them are well, and there are a lot of good people working in some of these, but there are also opportunists who seek to exploit weaknesses, and we have to deal with this.
All right.
So I would like to say some other responses have been very positive. I do not intend to be silent on some of these issues.
All right.
I don't have much time, and I'm going to use my time to raise my voice. All right. I think that that's something that I'm glad that this TV station has done, because the other stations are not doing that. And I invite the public to look at the newspapers and see what solutions are being offered.
All right, Professor Sweet, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking with us on this issue.
Thank you very much for having me, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Winston H.E. Sweet, calling for a national consultation on crime. And we will continue to put a focus on that as we go forward in the next couple of weeks, in this couple of days, as a matter of fact. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we share with you the numbers for COVID-19 on this Friday morning. And we look at the Newsday poll, the Newsday question, and the responses before we get to our discussion with the mayor of Point Fortin, a town in grief over a tragedy that happened there earlier in the week. Stay with us.
North Coast Jazz 2022. You asked for it. Consider it done. Park in comfort at the Queen's Park Savannah and ride in style to festival grounds for the biggest family event. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Park, ride, enjoy. It's all about family. Family Saturday, May 28th. Together again. Festival grounds, Blanchishers. Family. A tribute to Lord Nelson. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Born here, played here.
Get your tickets now at Crosby St. James, Extra Foods Arima, Sagre Grande, Grand Bazaar, Endeavour and Chaguanas, Digicel Trend City and C3 Malls, and Digicel Head Office, 11C Maraval, WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook, Suntix.com, or call our ticket hotline at 628-5835 or 681-1516. Change your fate! Start to win at life with $20,000 every month. Win $20,000 every month for 20 years with NLCB's newest game, Win for Life. 6 numbers from 28 plus the cash ball could make you win for life. You deserve a win. Play Win for Life today. Visit NLCBGames.com for details. Players must be 18 years and over. Please play responsibly.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
As a mother, convenience is a gift. With so many things to juggle every day, I need ease when doing business. Thanks to eyewearsolutions.com, I can order my contact lenses, solutions, and even sunglasses all on the go. Registering and ordering are easy. Plus, I get delivery right at my door or collect in-store if I choose. eyewearsolutions.com. Now that's convenience in a click. Visit eyewearsolutions.com today and enjoy 15% off your first purchase of contact lenses.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
Gift giving during a lockdown can still be hassle-free with a gift from FanZone with delivery options available nationwide. Visit and browse our Facebook and Instagram pages for all your official licensed merchandise and apparel and have it delivered to your door. Find us on Facebook and Instagram. FanZone, we've got you covered.
Welcome back to the program. Well, let's give you the numbers for COVID-19 on this Friday morning, May 13th, 2022. The new positive cases, the totally recovered patients, active cases, and the number of persons in hospital and what they call the parallel healthcare system. Before we get to the news, they poll the question and responses. So let them come up. 140,572, that's the number of totally recovered patients. 9,033, the total active positive cases. As at the end of the day yesterday, the death toll thus far, 3,866. 153,471, that's the total positive cases reported in the country since we began the counting on March 12, 2020, up to yesterday. 507, that's the new positive cases reported in the 24 hours up to the end of the day yesterday, 507. And 195, the number of persons in hospital with COVID-19. That's the status of the situation, the clinical update as of yesterday. So the Newsday poll now, the question is, what are your views on Energy Minister Stuart Young telling a CNN journalist that people have a good life in Trinidad and Tobago? And here are some of the responses. Public servants living on 2013 wages and subjected to 4 fuel increases sounds like a great life. Another response, I find he does a good job. If he has to hustle the resources, he can't tell the truth. Which pusherman ever says that they have boo weed? Good job, Stuart. That's the response here. He's right, it could be much worse. We already had a good life prior to the pandemic. Sure, everything is not perfect. I will acknowledge that we are better than most. And the final response, this man is not in touch with reality. Clearly, he ain't living in Trinidad. He's serious by, or you know who to write something like that? Which part of our social and ethnic construct, somebody used that term by. So those are the responses to the question, which was, what are your views on the Energy Minister's discussions with the CNN journalist on people having a good life in Trinidad and Tobago? He was talking with Richard Quest a couple of days ago. All right, so we had the headlines on this issue as a particular one in the tragedies that we faced over the last couple of days. This week has been a tragic week for Trinidad and Tobago in a number of respects. In Point Fortin, they began by trying to find a little baby who walked away from his home and ended up, well, they found him in a river. He perished. And there has been, well, some difficult situations about it, because a lady who had said that she'd seen him and she turned around and went back to do something and then went to try and find him, and she didn't. And people took their grief more than their rage out on her for a moment. She had to move out of the area. But from the moment the story broke, the mayor of Point Fortin has been meeting with the family and meeting with others, and she's trying to bring some kind of a solace to the situation. She's agreed to talk with us on what's the mood in the borough now. How are people dealing with it? This is a town sort of in sorrow. Mayor Salima Thomas is with us. Good morning. Good to have you. All right. Well, give us a sense of what people are dealing with, how gloomy it is, how people are rallying on the situation.
At this time, the people of Point Fortin, we are in mourning because we are a community, a close-knitted community. So losing a child or a parent losing a child, it comes as though the whole or the entire community would have lost a child. So at this point in time, amidst all the noises that are around us, right now, we are still, the focus and the attention is on the 2-year-old that, this tragic loss, so that persons are still in that, that feeling where that, you're feeling why, how, what could have been done, what should have been done. So this is the sentiments on the ground at the moment. However, I'm trying to encourage persons that we have to be there for the family. In spite of the noises that are around us, we still have to pay, much attention to the parents and the close relatives of Kimani Francis.
Yeah, I want to say, it seems to have been part of your whole approach to representing the people from the position that you have. I think from the very first moments you became a mayor of Point Fortin, whenever there's an issue with a family, even a single family, as in this case, you seem to want to be there to reach out with people. And this part of your mayorship, if that's the term one would say. Where does that come from?
Well, yes, it is part of it's the nature of the job. However, I also being a mother, and I think having that feminine touch, so, and, I hope you don't feel, anyhow, but, that motherly nature. Yeah. That motherly nature, that is a part of me. I think that is what really pushes me to really, be a little closer to the families in need and to my burgesses, because I understand. I have a total understanding, having, being brought up, by a mother myself and grandmothers, and now being one myself. It has taught me that lesson of that humane side, to always give that touch to every situation that we face.
Yeah, and because I remember there was that incident earlier up in which I think the soldier had shot the policeman, or the policeman shot the soldier after at this lime that they were having. And from the reporting that I saw on it, you were kind of torn as to whether to take a position between the two families, because it caused eruptions in those families again. But you were in the middle there trying to bring some solace on both sides. I remember that.
Yes. Yes, you're so true. But, in times like those, you don't choose sides, because I think I leave that up to the law. The law will handle that. But when it comes to, that unity that we are accustomed to here in Point Fortin, I am not going to choose any sides, so that I intend to, want to always be there and give that sort of attention to either or, to ensure that we sort of maintain that, that unity amongst each other in spite of the situation that may be presently happening or would have happened. I and my council, we intend to keep that mutual relationship or understanding between the different families or parties, as you're referring to in that situation.
All right, let's come back to the current one. Now, tell us a little bit about how the mother is dealing with herself. She probably is racked by guilt for some reason, for one reason or the other. On this case, how is she holding up?
How, what can I say, Andy? But I have been in constant communication with her up until last night. They are having 3 to 4 nights of vigil. I was fortunate to be there the night before, but unfortunately, I could not have made it. So in speaking with her on the phone, she's trying. She's trying, anyone in a situation like that. And if you put yourself in a situation like that, her only child at 2 years old, how could one feel? But she's trying to be strong because, she has a lot of family and loved ones that are close to her. I have to say, apart from all the information that is circulating, the community is also there supporting her, including myself, my council, our member of parliament. So we are there giving her that support. So she's there. She's hanging in there. Giving it one day at a time. And we are there just rallying with her to ensure that, she gets as much support as she can. But what can we do? Because we can bring back her son for her, but just try to be there to comfort her and give her some words of spiritual encouragement at this time.
Yeah, is she blaming herself?
I haven't gathered that much from her in conversation with her. She would not have said, anything along that line to me. However, I know she feels a sense of, what could I have done or what should I have done differently, to avoid this situation. So it is questions in her mind, and it is questions that, she will ask herself. And, but again, it's something that is so unfortunate that we all have to now face the consequences of, but we are there giving her that support.
Yeah, and how do you treat with the attacks on the lady who said what she said, that she'd seen the boy walking, but somehow she didn't probably make the move in time to find out where he was going to try and save him from what transpired, and people were attacking her to the point where she had to move out. How is that being dealt with?
Well, I know two things. I could speak on, my side with how, I am looking, how I look at it. But I know the villagers and the community, again, there is a lot of noises. And I say noises because we still have to, it is left up to the police. It's a police matter that is being handled. They're doing their investigation, and we await what comes out of this investigation. So whilst the community is very much, angry and hurting as to what this young lady could have done to avoid it reaching so far, or it having to reach to the state, I understand, all the different angles that persons are trying to take, but I want to encourage and let persons know, let us leave this to the police. It's a police matter. It is going to be dealt with, and it will be dealt accordingly based on what information they received, and they do their job. In the meanwhile, I say that we should not be so forceful to want to be judgmental, right? So we were not there. Most of us, we are just going by what we hear. and not, actually being present at the time. And yes, I understand, as I said before, all the different stories that are coming, but I am asking, please, let the focus be right now. We are facing the loss of a 2-year-old. Let us not stray from having to, maintain that strength and courage for the family at this time, and let the Lord just take its course. So that is my encouragement. I have been trying to reach out to the young lady, but I was unable to. And in the heat of the moment, while we were there on the ground, when we got the tragic news, it was just a moment, a sorrowful moment, and it still is. So at that time, I wasn't able to speak with the young lady who would have claimed that, she saw the baby that morning. But again, I'm asking the persons, we have lost a 2-year-old. There is a mother and a father and a family hurting and mourning. Let us do our best to maintain our strength and courage for this family at this time.
Yeah, because she said that she did go after him after whatever she did in the interim, but she outlined a situation in which she herself is not well. She couldn't move as fast as people expected that she should, and so on and so on. And so she also is dealing with some grief of her own as to whether she should have moved swifter or whatever came in between when she saw him and when she decided to move. So she has her own challenges to work out. And you're saying you're calling for understanding from those who may not see it that way. And to what extent, but there's a certain extent to which it seems as though the community is coming together in a sense, and this is one in which, well, all for one in this case, because people are, it's inside of that, people are sort of expressing their solidarity with what has happened. So it's not a case of people being indifferent, but it's just that probably because of grief, they are looking for someone to blame, and she is the recipient of that. So that's part of what is the dynamics here, right?
Yes, and you're so correct. In the midst of all the grief and hurt and, the feelings that persons are having right now, we are lashing out and saying things and doing things. And that is pulling us away from the fact that we have lost a 2-year-old. And that is what I'm saying. Let us, now you would have said something earlier on about, I'm asking the people to be understanding. No, I cannot control persons' feelings. Yes. And I hear all the different stories from the different angles and, what could have happened, what should have happened, and what should not have happened. But what I'm saying, yes, who is man to judge, Andy? Who is man to judge? We were not there at the time, so we are just going with the third-party information that is being circulated out there, and we are losing sight of the actual situation, which is the loss of a 2-year-old. And I figure that at this point, in order for us to, and we can't really come to terms with this now. I don't think it will happen in a month, in 2 months, in a year, because, there have been similar situations in Trinidad and Tobago, and we still, I think, as Trinidadians, having to go through that, we still have those memories of those situations that happened before us. But I'm saying, let us maintain our focus right now on the parents who would have lost their child, a child that could have been either one of ours, a relative that could have been one of ours. And as I said, as a community, the loss of one for a family is the loss of one for the entire community. Let us rally together as a community as we would have always been. We would have just recently, come out of celebrating our 42nd anniversary. And we pride ourselves in saying we are resilient and moving forward. But, there's a challenge of us having to move forward in a situation like this. But let us show our level of resiliency and focus on giving that love and support to the family of Kimani Francis at this time. I'm asking persons, let the police do their jobs. And I believe there is a God. There will be some form of, judgment upon whatever the situation is at some point in time. So let us just focus on supporting the family.
All right, Mayor Point Fortin Salima Thomas, thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you.
All right, so let's begin to take a look around the region now. Yesterday we showed you the story about, well, two parliamentarians, one in the government and one in the opposition, in a function together, and they had a very sort of animated exchange. It didn't get rowdy, didn't get acrimonious, but that was something I was wondering to what extent that we could see that happening in Trinidad and Tobago. They disagreed about a matter and they had a debate. At the end of the day, that is what it was. But now there's this story about the fact that the opposition is accusing the government of not treating the opposition in the way that it should. So let's take a look from Guyana News Source.
During his remarks at the opening of a Commonwealth Parliamentary Association seminar at the Arthur Chung Convention Center, the opposition MPs said the time is ripe for the Guyana government to answer whether consensus is being practiced in the Parliament of Guyana and whether democracy is being practiced also. He said the opposition hopes that the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association will hold the government accountable for the manner in which it conducts parliamentary affairs. But more than that, he noted, the government has not been open to working with the opposition at the parliamentary or any level, and that, he believes, rubbishes the government's inclusivity talks.
This government lustily sings a call for a one Guyana, but practices the opposite. Just imagine that the opposition parliamentarians who represent at least one half of the people of Guyana are treated as pariahs by the government of Guyana.
MP Henry recalled the exclusion of opposition members of parliament from this year's Republic Anniversary ceremony as one of the many examples of the government deliberately seeking to undermine and exclude the opposition. He continued by saying that the government is only nice to the parliament and only approaches the parliament when it needs money.
Parliamentary sittings are seen to be treated more as impediments than being necessary. However, when there is a need to dip into the consolidated fund, one may rest assured that Parliament will be held.
The Member of Parliament told the forum that the government also uses its parliamentary majority to railroad pieces of legislation through the House, although sometimes it is confronted with strong opposition to those pieces of legislations.
Mr. Chair, recently we saw the current government using its majority to change the quorum of the Public Accounts Committee so that they can stymie its work by their non-attendance whenever issues to be dealt with are too hot for their comfort.
So let's go to St. Vincent and the Grenadines now, where the Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, is talking about the burdens imposed on the people there with the gas subsidy in that country. Yes.
The new measures came on the heels of an arrangement signed between St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Venezuela for over $100 million in debt relief. The government decided to keep prices at the pump steady and absorb the expected fuel increases, which will come at a cost of $3 million Eastern Caribbean dollars over the next 3 months. On the WeFM Issues at Hand program on Sunday, PM Gonsalves said it will be a huge financial burden for government to maintain the subsidy.
Remember, we do a rolling 3-month average. And on the occasion last month, when it came for the rolling 3-month average, it didn't happen. So it should have gone up to $15 and nearly $16. But we kept it at that price. Because if you listen carefully to what Camilo is saying, that what he wants to do from the Ministry of Finance is to keep it below the magical figure as long as he possibly can of $15 per gallon. And the extent to which we can hold it at that is going to be real problematic, you know. At the end of March, our revenues for the first 3 months of the year went up by 5.2%. Our expenditure went up by 3.8%. The current expenditure, we have just a small current account deficit, and we have a primary balance in the surplus. The revenue items which are performing here are taxes on goods and services up by 14%, taxes on international trade by 13%, taxes on sales of goods and services 34%. The broad base of the taxes performing, at least in the first 3 months, pretty okay. But the additional monies we have to spend, either in subsidies or in reducing the extent of our taxes, like for instance, on the excise tax for gas and diesel, and the custom service charge in respect of LPG. It's significant revenue loss for us.
Seven is out, all day is in. WESN News on the hour.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
In this season, we talk more about health, wellness, and everything in between. I am so excited to share with you everything about health and wellness so that you can design the life that you've always dreamed of. Join me here on What's Up Doc.
What's Up Doc, Tuesdays and Thursdays here on WESN, Content Capital.
Saturday, May 28th. The day we come together again as family. Master talent, great food, awesome vibe. Come have a good time. Family, a tribute to Lord Nelson.
It's tradition on the island. Nowhere else that I know is like
North Coast Jazz. Born here, played here.
Burning questions, urgent topics. Welcome back to One-on-One, the show where we tackle the most current and pertinent subjects that are affecting all citizens, where we ask the hard questions and have in-depth conversations. What separates One-on-One from other talk shows is that the conversation stems from a younger perspective on topics that affect the fabric of our society. One-on-One, Wednesdays at 10 a.m. on WESN Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law,
and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Don't keep yourself handcuffed. We continue to receive calls from members of the viewing public whose cable provider is Flow and cannot receive WESN. We advise that you unfortunately reside on the original Flow platform. If you wish to receive WESN's high-quality programming, you must contact Flow to be upgraded to the new Flow Evo platform. Call Flow now and demand your upgrade.
A reminder from WESN. We urge you to protect yourself and others from the spread of COVID-19. Stay safe by taking some simple precautions. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand rub. Maintain a safe distance from anyone who is coughing or sneezing. Wear a mask. Don't touch your eyes, nose or mouth. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay at home. If you have a fever, cough and difficulty breathing, seek medical attention. Following the above can help us all to help each other.
Welcome back to the program. Well, on the Express on Wednesday, there was this headline, Parliament dissolved as Harris fires government ministers, and the story is Dateline Bastia, that's the capital of St. Kitts and Nevis. And yesterday on the program, we talked with journalists there, Andre Huey, about what the situation was. The situation is that the Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, had dissolved the Parliament, gone to the Governor-General to do that, and he told the people that he will tell them when the elections would be held. And that came out of a situation in which 6 of the 9 people making up the majority in the Parliament in St. Kitts and Nevis had expressed no confidence in the Prime Minister, given a litany of issues that they had raised, and they wanted to have a debate, and the Parliament forestalled that. The Prime Minister forestalled that by going to the Governor-General and asking for the Parliament to be dissolved, and rather than face that vote of no confidence, which, according to the best estimates, he would have lost. Well, one of the persons who's figured in that is the former foreign minister. He's the minister, he's the premier of Nevis, and we've described to you the situation, the unique situation in that Twin Island country. I was almost going to say the Twin Island Republic, as we are. It's not, but it's a Twin Island state in CARICOM, as we are. They have a situation which, he is the premier. We've spoken with him before in these facilities, Mark Brantley. He's the premier in Nevis, but in the federal government, St. Kitts and Nevis, he was the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he spoke about this issue on the radio. He has a program on VON, that's the Voice of Nevis, for 2 hours 2 nights ago, outlining what the situation was and setting the stage for what is to come. He's agreed to talk with us. He's on the phone with us now. Good morning, sir. Good to have you once again.
Good morning to you, and good morning to all the beautiful people of Trinidad and Tobago. It is very good to be with you again.
All right, well, and thanks for doing it. So I've listened to most of your address on Wednesday night on VON, and you laid out what the situation was. And from what I picked there, the many points that I picked up there, but I'm trying to get to the essence of it. You said that you all went in a team unity. That's a 3-party sort of coalition that came together and fought the election. You all won 6 of the 11 seats, that's correct, and that there was a principle you're working with, that part of the agreement, which you call the Charlestown Agreement, an agreement reached in the big city in Nevis about what should have been the arrangement, that there will be a better sort of slice of the pie for the people of Nevis, as well as the agreement that the last Prime Minister, with whom Dr. Harris had fallen out with in any case, that he had been in office too long, and you said in that address that it raised the issue about how power corrupts and absolute power corrupted absolutely, and you all wanted to move away from that, and you had agreed that the Prime Minister should not serve more than a particular amount of terms, and it was coming up to that for Dr. Harris, and he was trying to sort of renege on that, and that led to a series of other things. And so let's take it from there. And what the situation is now then, how do you all, so you're going back to the polls, right?
Well, it appears that we're going back to the polls, and that is what we want. In fact, we think that we should go back to the polls as quickly as possible and let the people who ultimately we serve take a decision as to the government that they would wish to take them forward. It is quite clear that Dr. Harris never had any intentions of abiding by the principles and the core essence of Team Unity. Team Unity, as you have pointed out, was an amalgamation of 3 political parties, in which, in fact, Dr. Harris's party has always been the minority. In our first term in 2015, in the elections there, he won just 1 seat, his party, out of 11, and the other 2 parties together had 6 seats, and so we had 7 out of 11. It means, therefore, that those 2 other parties could have formed a government without Dr. Harris, but we stuck to our bargain. And not only was he with 1 seat included in the government, he was given the prime ministership, because that is what had been agreed prior to the election. We got to 2020, and we won 9 of the 11 seats on offer. He and his party won 2, the other 2 parties together won 7. And so again, we could have formed a government without him. But he was again put in the chair as prime minister for the 2nd and final term, according to the agreement. And lo and behold, not 1 year into that term, he at his convention had a woman, in fact from Trinidad, who came here as his guest speaker and announced that he was a special breed of leader, a rare man, a rare find, it appears, in the Caribbean, and therefore he should be allowed to continue beyond the 2 terms that had been agreed. And that is what set the whole train in motion in 2021. Bear in mind that we had elections in June of 2020, so this was less than a year later, in March of 2021, that at his party convention they made this grand announcement. That, of course, upset the apple cart, so to speak, and that started the public, if you will, display. But as I've pointed out, there have been a number of issues that have plagued this team since the inception that we've been trying to work at internally. And of course, persons have asked the question naturally, why did it take so long? Well, it took so long because having invested so much time and energy and attention to Team Unity, having sat down and negotiated over the long years that we were in opposition to try and put this construct together, having determined that this was the best political idea that the country had had in our post-independence period, we wanted it to work. And like a marriage, which doesn't work immediately, parties sit internally and try to work things out. They take counseling. I can tell you and your listeners that we had a series of meetings privately. We had a series of retreats. We had persons come in from around the region to try and assist and bring clarity. But the Prime Minister was set on his particular course, and it was quite clear now that his difficulties with Dr. Douglas, whom he served for 18 years, had nothing really to do with Dr. Douglas's style. It's just that he wanted that position for himself, because he has now come and has behaved worse, in my view, than Dr. Douglas did.
Yeah, and I heard a caller, somebody who appeared to be a supporter of yours, ask you that question when you started taking calls on the program. If all these things were going on, as you read them out from stage to stage and from point to point over the years, why did you wait so long? And you made that point that, well, you all were committed to making this thing work, and there were aspirations and ambitions that you all had, and that you didn't want to sort of lay any preemptive strike, but it got to the point where things were going irretrievably downhill, and you all sought to get the Governor General in on it. He said that he didn't have the authority to do it, but you got counsel outside from Jeffrey Robertson, who is known in these parts as well as a kind of constitutional advisor. And he said that the Governor General could have done it if you all wanted, and then you got the go-ahead to, you took the decision to file the vote of no confidence with the Speaker, and you said that the Speaker employed what we would call here some cojones, some testicular fortitude, and put it on the order paper, and it would have happened, and the Prime Minister made this preemptive strike.
Yes, well, you are absolutely correct, and it remains a conundrum here that the Governor General, in his wisdom, determined that he had absolutely no authority to act, notwithstanding that he had before him, in writing, a letter from 6 elected MPs, 6 out of 11, so therefore a clear majority, saying that they had no confidence in Timothy Harris and rather reposed their trust and confidence in Sean Richards. It was the legal opinion that we received from Sir Jeffrey Robertson QC that suggested that there was a continuing duty on the part of the Governor General to ensure that at all times throughout the 5-year term, that the person who occupied the chair of Prime Minister had the support of the elected majority. And certainly if that changed, then the Governor General, who appointed, also had the power to disappoint. The Governor General, in his wisdom, said he had no such power. But what we find curious is that the man who had clearly lost the support of the majority then went to the same Governor General and said, I want you to fire all 6 of those elected MPs, and the Governor General acceded to that request. And so he had no power to act on the instructions of 6 elected members of the Parliament, but he had the power to act on the instructions of 1 elected member who had lost the support of that majority. And it brings, therefore, into question, not only for St. Kitts and Nevis, but the wider region, what do we do with these constitutional instruments that we have that are interpreted sometimes in this way to make a mockery of democracy? Because it now means, and in fact what the Prime Minister or the former Prime Minister here at St. Kitts and Nevis has done, is that in firing 6 elected members of his cabinet, he is now soldiering on throughout the period of this dissolution with 3 elected members, himself among that 3, and 2 non-elected members of the cabinet, and he has assigned to them all the portfolios in the country. And it really is, it has reduced St. Kitts and Nevis to a laughing stock, really, because we are being governed in a situation where of 11 constituencies, 8 of those constituencies have no representation either in the government or in the cabinet. And so it really is, I think, yet another step in our evolution and in our democratic process and our constitutional development, that we must now look carefully at this instrument to ensure that no Governor General in the future in that position, faced with the overwhelming evidence that the person who is sitting in the chair of Prime Minister has lost support, is going to say that their hands are tied and they can't do anything. And so, as a result of the Governor General's inaction, we did file a motion of no confidence, and that motion, the Speaker had set down, and in fact the notices were being sent out, and the motion would have been heard on Monday coming. And it is quite clear what the result would have been. And so the Prime Minister, or former Prime Minister as I'm calling him, he went on the radio, gave a national address, dissolved the House, fired everybody, and determined that, I don't know what it's like in Trinidad and Tobago, but here in St. Kitts and Nevis when we were boys, and you played cricket and you were the owner of the bat, and if you went in and you got out first ball, you took up your bat and you went home.
Yes, we're familiar with that.
Game over. And so his approach was, listen, if I can't have this power that I crave, then I'm going to just, as we say colloquially here, mash up the whole thing. And that's exactly what he has sought to do.
Yeah, you referred to the lady from Trinidad that night, and you referred to her again. So she, was his political advisor. I'm advised that she is somebody named Dr. Sharon Gopal McNichols, who is a political, she was a political aspirant in Trinidad and Tobago here. So she was the one who's selling this idea that people should forget the agreement on this question about term limits for a prime minister, and that people should not turn their backs on him because he still had a lot to offer.
Absolutely. I mean, the only thing she didn't call him was Jesus, because he came, and as far as she was concerned, he was the greatest invention, perhaps since John F. Kennedy or Nelson Mandela. And so as far as she was concerned, he was the person and he ought to remain in office indefinitely. But of course, we expect that she was invited to say what she said. She was the keynote speaker at his convention, but that is what started this whole morass, because he never corrected the record. He spoke after her. He never, ever corrected that, and he has since never corrected it. And we understood that he has ambitions to be just like Dr. Douglas, whom he criticized, and to move on and to stay on. And it's interesting because what is now surfacing many of the speeches that he would have given when we had put Team Unity together and we were in opposition. And in those speeches, he said all the right things. He was adamant that he only wanted to do 2 terms. He was adamant when we ourselves then, in a majority position, had filed a motion of no confidence against Dr. Douglas, a motion that Dr. Douglas held in abeyance for 20 months. And he was adamant and making the regional media doing the rounds and saying that this was improper, illegitimate. We wrote to the Governor General the same way we have done now, we did then in relation to Douglas. And he referred to Douglas as an illegitimate Prime Minister, said he had no authority because he had lost the majority support. And those same words now have come back full circle, 8 years later, because he's now doing the very things that he condemned. And so it really says to us that as an individual there's absolutely no integrity. And as you know, agreements depend on persons with the character and the integrity if they're going to work.
Yeah, and some of the issues, have their bearing or resemblance to our situation as well, and that's a critical part of the arrangement, what you will call the fair share part of the agreement, so that the people of Nevis could get a fairer share of the pie in the Federation, and that resembles part of our situation here with Tobago and with Trinidad. So from that perspective, we have some sort of similarity. And you talked about how the agreements on that, the undertakings on that, were also being violated and ignored.
Oh, completely violated. This is one of the principal issues. My party, the CCM in Nevis, is the dominant party in Nevis. In fact, we now control all of the federal seats in Nevis. There are 3 federal seats. We have control of all 3. It was a party led by the late Vance Emery, and it was a party that had a position that it would not join or coalesce with any political party in St. Kitts. We changed that position in 2013 or thereabouts, when we were principal founders and architects of Team Unity. And one of the principal concerns that Nevis has had and continues to have is that we have not got a fair share in this arrangement. And so one of the agreements that we made, one of the bedrock principles of Team Unity, was that Nevis would get a proportional share of resources based on its population. So we would get a pro rata share based on population. The current population of Nevis is about 25%, and therefore that was the agreed proportional share. We have a citizenship by investment program here that brings in billions of dollars into Bastia, and we were in Nevis forced. I am, as a Premier of Nevis, during COVID, I was forced to borrow. I was forced to do whatever I could to keep public servants paid, to keep the lights on, so to speak, to keep the island running. St. Kitts was awash in cash. To put that in context for you, in 2021, the last full year of COVID, the Citizenship by Investment Program brought into Bastia $588 million EC dollars, just over $200 million US dollars. The people of Nevis, of that just over $200 million US dollars, we got just about 15. That's it. And the rest was kept in Bastia. And so we have said, listen, this is nowhere near what was agreed. And every time we have raised this with the honorable gentleman, he has given some excuse, some reason to kick the ball down the road. So he said a study needed to be done. He said that his financial people were looking at it. He said he wanted to form a committee. And the most recent iteration, he says that the World Bank now has to come in. Now you tell me if the average A-level student in Trinidad and Tobago couldn't look at a stream of income, take out the expenses, and divide the rest on a population basis, 25% to Nevis and 75% to St. Kitts. So this is, again, the level of just dishonesty, I think, that has characterized this relationship. And the people of Nevis are understandably upset because they, too, thought that they were going to get a better arrangement. We thought that we were going to move to a new paradigm for St. Kitts and Nevis. And while it did get some relief in terms of we got a bit more than we got under the Douglas administration, the reality is that this is Douglas 2.0.
Yeah.
And Timothy Harris really has not lived up to the expectations. He has not lived up to any of the core principles of team unity. We agreed, for example, that we would not field candidates where we had team unity candidates already. So put differently, if there was a PAM candidate in a particular district, then naturally we would not field a competing candidate there. It's a small place in our country, so we determined very early on that he was courting candidates to run for his party to try to expand his base, because his party at this point only contests 3 seats nationally. And so his attitude is that if he wants to stay on, as this lady from Trinidad begged him to do, then he must increase his seat count. And to increase your seat count, you must increase the number of seats in which you contest.
Yeah.
And so he has been quietly seeking to build up his arsenal while sitting in a cabinet with us, while purportedly leading the team. He has been systematically undermining the team and doing everything in his power to build his own power base. And so we soon realized that the team unity construct was used by him purely for personal advancement and self-aggrandizement.
Yeah. So what's the situation on the street? And is sentiment different in Charlestown as opposed to Bastia? Because that traditionally, from my understanding of the situation going back, that is how it has always been there. The views are, there are lots of there's a huge gulf between the feelings of the people in Nevis as opposed to the feelings of the people in St. Kitts on a lot of issues, correct?
Well, I think talking to you from Trinidad and Tobago, you understand intuitively how the islands work and these twin island nations work. And so you're absolutely correct. I'm pretty sure in Trinidad and Tobago it would be similar, that what perhaps excites people in Scarborough may not do the same in Port of Spain. So I understand that, and you're right. The sentiment is different. What I can tell you is that Timothy Harris has absolutely zero approval rating on the island of Nevis. He didn't have it even during unity, and he certainly is far worse now. The fight in Nevis politically is a straight fight between 2 parties. My party, the Concerned Citizens Movement, and the opposition, who currently has no seats, the Nevis Reformation Party. We are aware that he has been courting the Nevis Reformation Party even before all of this became public, because that was an issue that we also raised with him. He has been providing funding to the Nevis Reformation Party, but so unpopular is he over here that he has not been able to show his hand publicly. So they're saying, send the money, but don't come close to us. So that is his problem on Nevis. Now on St. Kitts, he has his base over there, the People's Labour Party, but we will have to see how that works, because the People's Action Movement and the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, which is the party of Dr. Douglas, now led by Dr. Drew, those PAM and Labour are the 2 big parties on St. Kitts, and his party, the PLP, has always been a minority party, having only been formed maybe about a decade ago. So we will have to see how that goes, but I think at this point, the conventional wisdom suggests that there is really no pathway for Timothy Harris. And that is why I liken it to the boy who takes up the bat and goes home, rather than seeking a compromise. He has opted to deploy a nuclear option, which is to send the country back into an election, which, based on what we're seeing on the ground, he simply cannot prevail in. So I am not sure what his thinking is, but as I said, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and also perhaps we should change that to say it also makes us mad.
All right, Mr. Brantley, thank you very much for talking with us. So election season is there again?
Election season is here again, and it's a good season. It's an opportunity to engage with our people on their doorsteps, to go and bring the message to them, and it is always a season for me, which is exciting. It's a season when we engage with our people. I'm a firm believer in our democracy, and a firm believer that our people ultimately take the decisions that are in their best interests, and their voice is the voice of God. And so for me, this is a season when we go, we appeal to our people, and ultimately we respect whatever they say.
Yeah, I can tell you that I've been good friends with Colin Tyrrell. We went to school together in Toronto, and I've been to St. Kitts and Nevis on a couple of occasions, beginning with independence in 1983. So you may see me around.
Well, it would be good to see you and to make your acquaintance face to face. I think this is the second time on your program, and I really, really sincerely appreciate the opportunity. And once again, thank you. and say good morning to all the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much, His Excellency.
Take care. God bless.
Mark Brantley, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs in St. Kitts Nevis, but he remains the Premier of Nevis. And we can't stop telling you about the uniqueness of that twin island country there as part of CARICOM, as part of, well, CARICOM certainly. Well, that's our broadcast for this morning. We want to thank you for watching. We want to thank all our guests. We tell you that you can always keep in touch with us here at AM Prime, at WESNCC, on all our social media platforms, and send your emails to amprime@wancc.com. I will be back at 10 o'clock for this week's edition of 10 Questions. My guest will be Terry Dale Innes, one of the representatives of Trinidad and Tobago who made an appearance before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, addressing some issues having to do with how we prosecute our human rights agenda in Trinidad and Tobago. But for now, that's it. Let's just tell you that in half an hour, the guys will come in for today's edition of Talking Point after the news at 8 o'clock. For now, I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. Keep good.